If you're injured or hurt at work, just call Joy.
Tonight, we continue our celebration of history and cultural heritage, highlighting schools within the Charleston County School District that honor influential African-American educators, artists, and innovators. We spoke with Professor Damon Fordham, a distinguished history professor at the Citadel, who sheds light on his personal interactions and observations of remarkable people whose names adorn school buildings and walls, serving as inspirations for young minds today.
I went to Moultrie Middle School, but I knew nothing about General William Moultrie until years later when I was a history student.
And now Damon Fordham spends his day teaching history to Citadel cadets, leading walking tours throughout Charleston, and writing about people and places for their contributions to history.
So much of the African-American history of the community was forever lost to the graveyards because people's focus in those days was not so much a preservation of the past, but survival in the present.
He says examining the tapestry of history also inspires a path forward, especially for students whose minds are eager for new insights.
The teachers can't teach what they don't know themselves, and much of this material has not been taught, and it's usually told by the people who, just like we're having these stories right now, who lived through it. And that's why it's imperative that those of us who lived through it write about it, put it on social media, or be interviewed in forums like this so these stories can be preserved and that you can be inspired.
Professor Fordham said one of the most inspiring was the ingenuity of Daniel Jenkins.
But the genius of Daniel J. Jenkins was he formed the jazz band in order to spread the word about the orphanage, and all of the publicity that the band received meant more money for the orphanage and an increase in facilities to help serve these young people who may not have been served in another way.
He says he's learned about personal accounts of interactions with trailblazers. The late South Carolina Senator Herbert U. Fielding told him he was motivated by two educators, Ellen Sanders and Florence Clyde, the namesakes of Sanders-Clyde Elementary School.
Florence A. Clyde, whose Sanders-Clyde Elementary is partly named after, was a teacher at the Avery Institute. Ms. Clyde was, quote, a crackerjack teacher, meaning that she was very good at what she did, but if you got answers wrong, they would rap you on the knuckles with a ruler, and that would be enticement to want to learn. So even though that type of thing is frowned upon today, Mr. Fielding told me it did help him learn.
Professor Fordham says Septima Clark Academy is named to recognize a beloved educator who worked directly with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
She was fired from teaching at what is now Sanders-Clyde in 1955 because of her civil rights activities. Martin Luther King hired her to go around the South doing the same thing, teaching black people to read and write so that they could register to vote.
He says he was an 18-year-old Charleston County School District student when he saw Mrs. Clark in a Charleston parade.
And the people of Charleston walked over to that float going, Miss Clark, just so that they could touch that float that she was on.
Simmons Pinckney Middle School honors the late Senator Clemente Pinckney, murdered in the Emanuel 9 massacre in 2015. And the beloved blacksmith from east of the Cooper, Philip Simmons.
He was born in 1912 in Daniel Island, and as a young man, he was forced to drop out of Buste Elementary School to feed his family. So around 1998, I took a group of school children to meet him, and he had them enthralled with his iron making and his stories. And a 12-year-old girl, I believe her name was Alexis Drayton, asked him, Mr. Simmons, how long did it take you to be a blacksmith? And he looked at her and replied, I'm still learning, honey. That's what life is all about.
Professor Fordham says naming schools after influential African Americans not only honors their remarkable legacies, but inspires future generations to embrace the values of resiliency, achievement, and community, fostering a deeper connection to shared history and cultural heritage. You can watch more stories honoring Black History Month by going to our website, counton2.com.